have to make the playoffs, hands down. We have to do it for the fans, we have to do it for the region, and we have to show everybody that we were not just a one-season Cinderella team, that we are an amazing team. We're a world-class team. And so making playoffs, hopefully going far in playoffs, is exactly how we're going to tell everybody that this is a world-class team that's here to stay.
Hello and welcome to a new edition of the City Voice podcast. I am joined by a very special guest to see out the year, Carolyn Kindle. Welcome to the City Voice podcast. Sorry for going a bit hard there on the opener. A bit loud.
No, thank you for having me. I was just not surprised. I was a little surprised by that.
Luke's gets surprised as well. So it's, get a bit excited heading into the podcast. We've got a lot to talk about, but before we get into it, I wanted to get a top line take of how you're feeling heading into 2025.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think when it comes to sporting, I think the players that we brought in after the summer transfer window really started to come together. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. But we have a new head coach. Cannot wait for him to come. I think he arrives here early January to start preseason off correctly. So I think it's going to be really, really exciting next year. I have high hopes for the team.
Do you feel that the energy levels are good across the club?
Yeah, I really do. I think everybody's excited to come back. I think nobody was excited about how the year ended last year or this year. I think there was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of bonding. I think you saw some maturity in some of these new players we brought in, and I think that there's a lot that they can do. But we've also got Celio coming back, hopefully, Ostra coming back. So some familiar faces will be back out there. So I'm excited for, the team to come back together.
And have you seen those two recently? Like, what's the mood like with them?
So I've actually seen them a couple times. The resilience they have, and the positivity, even through these injuries, that they at least showed to me, it was very heartwarming and very heartfelt. I know they're both anxious to get back out there. But just as humans, they're also great humans too.
Yeah, we can't wait to see them back. So we're going to go through some chapters today. We'll do a bit of a revisit of the sporting performance. I'd love to get your take on what's going on off the field, and it would be great to talk about what you're thinking heading into 2025. So let's start at the very top. 2024 had some highs and the lows. I'd love to get your sort of overall take from a sporting perspective, like how you felt last year went.
Well, I think the lows of the lows were how many injuries we had. And some of them, obviously, too, we just referred to. They were potentially career-ending injuries, but you never want to see that many of your players down. High, we brought up some great City 2 talent, young kids that came out there, played their hearts out. I think it was the Colorado match where half the team was basically City 2 players. Having to make a tough decision on a coaching change was definitely something that you weren't prepared for. But, one of the things this ownership has always been committed to is making sure that there is a good product out on the pitch. And, things outside of our control started to happen. And so it was time to make a change. We're forever grateful for John Hackworth for stepping into the position as interim head coach. And really kind of bringing the team back together. High, we brought in some amazing talent. Watching how they have so quickly assimilated into the other players, I think they do bring some maturity. They want to be helpful. They want to be encouraging. And so it's very heartfelt and very heartwarming for me for them to sort of take some of the younger players under their wing. So from that perspective, I think we ended the year as best as we could. Then we had to do a head coach search, which was, something I've never done before to the extent that we did it, but it took a little bit longer than expected, but we had to make sure we found the right person. Somebody that would not only fit in with the playing style that Lutz has sort of created, but also would fit in with the team as well. But there's also that whole, we need City fans in St. Louis region to really be invested in them as well. So we ended up with a great person. I'm very excited for his arrival.
So going back to the early performance challenges that you had at the start of the year, like I think anybody that works here can attest that you're very close to the club, you're involved day to day. How does your relationship with the sporting staff work when you're going through like the ups and the downs? What's your role in those moments?
So I think it's one of two things. It's to ask questions, but also to be sympathetic. So sometimes you kind of just have to take a step back and say, I don't know the sport. I certainly don't know it to the level that the coaching staff and really everybody on that staff would know that I would. But as an ownership, as an owner, I do have a responsibility to kind of start asking tough questions. Like, what does this mean? What's the plan? What can we do? And always keeping in mind that we've got a whole community and a whole region behind us. And we made some pretty ambitious promises, and I have to make sure that we keep those promises. So, the first year, here we are, Cinderella year, nothing can go wrong.
Yep.
They don't tell you about year number 2. So then we come into year number 2, and it's just every day was sort of interesting because you never knew what was going to come your way. Luckily, we have a great team here for more emotional support than anything else. But yeah, it's fascinating, and I love being in the role that I'm in. But there are definitely days where it's easy to be sympathetic, but then that may flip the next day, and then I have to ask some tough questions.
You made changes fairly fast. I think they probably caught a lot of people off guard. We're a club, we were 18 months in when those decisions were made. Is moving fast on making decisions, is that part of the tail away? Is that part of what you're bringing to the club, that you recognize challenges early and you make swift changes?
So ever since I was a kid, my uncle has always told me that bad news only continues to get worse. And I think that that's sort of been in the back of my head, but it's also things we've had to do at Enterprise too. And so just, you've got a 67-year-old company that's been very successful. And part of it is, not being afraid to make changes quickly. And I think when you look at just sports teams in general, the ones that try to hold on to it for too long end up having to get out of a deeper and deeper hole. And we certainly did not want to put ourselves in that position. It's emotional. It's hard because you do have a personal relationship with these people. But at the end of the day, you do have to look at the greater good and what's best for the community and the fans.
So you make a coaching change mid-season, and then you sign a lot of new talent in. So you're combining a lot of change all at the same time. Was the mid-season investment, was that planned, or was that a kind of antidote to the problems that you were seeing on the pitch? Like, how was that happening? Because it felt like a lot of big things happening in a very short space of time.
It was. So we had always had a budget that we knew at some point we were going to have to go out and bring new talent in. I think we weren't sure exactly when that was going to be, but then when you started seeing injuries and you just started seeing the evolution of the team, it was time to really start focusing on that. And then we were able to find incredible talent at the right time. So it actually all kind of worked together. It was planned at some point. I'm just not sure if we knew when. And then all of a sudden, you kind of started having all these things that were outside of your control. And like I said, the ability to recruit and sign the players that we did, I think was a huge win for the sporting department and Diego and others. And I think that's what needs to be celebrated is, we got through it, but yes, it was a lot of changes very quickly.
You always mention the character of people coming in. How important was it for you that even moving at speed, that you brought the right types of characters into the dressing room?
So I actually go to lunch with every new player at that level. And you leave a lunch, and after 27 years of being in the working world, you leave a lunch and you have a good feeling, or sometimes you can have a bad feeling. With everybody, including the head coach, I walked out of there saying St. Louis will be a better region and City will be a better team with that kind of leadership. And when they talk to things about, their spouses and their children and what's important to them and what they like about St. Louis so far, you do have this moment where you're like, okay, you're our people. Like, you understand what the mission is. And I'm always asked 2 questions. Number 1, how did you get into this? And some of them don't believe me, but I'm like, it's true. And then number 2 is, what is this community like? Because what we see is amazing people, great cost of living, great facility, but what's it really like living here? And so I always kind of circle back and I say, well, was I right? Was I wrong? And they're like, you were right. It's amazing. And so I think that, I think that's very important to me as well in the ownership.
Going back to the coaching side of things, John Hackworth, who has covered a lot of positions at this club, He was chosen to be the interim head coach. What was the thinking behind that big decision?
Well, I think number one, he's really been here from the beginning. He had a hand in all the players we recruited, but he also has a very fatherly-like quality about him, but he also knows the sport. And I think kind of referencing back to something you said, there was so much change that having that consistency and that leadership was key. And I think he really did do a good job of bringing a team back together, including, 5-6 new players. But you can't really go out and find the experience that John Hackworth has.
Were you satisfied with how the season finished?
Well, no, because you want to go to playoffs. You want to win. You want to be competitive for fighting for trophies. So no, I wasn't satisfied with the way the season ended. I hope it's a one and done. And I will no longer be sitting here bitter about the fact we didn't make the playoffs. I'm hoping that I'm celebrating how far we get in the playoffs is my plan going forward.
Fans will love to hear that. It was a difficult season. We've said that many times before, but that doesn't mean you can't have favorite moments throughout the season. I'd love to get your take on the moments where you're like, wow, this is fun. This is a great place to be.
Well, I think standing down on the pitch for our home opener and watching people actually have the names of players on their kits was amazing, because that means that these players have done a good job just in 1 year of having fans so endeared to them that they're putting that player's name on their kit. So that made me really happy, because last year nobody knew who any of these players were. I think the second thing was seeing how this entire community came out to support the Lubins, because that was a really tough moment for everybody. And, the outpouring of support and the towels and the comments, and, they definitely felt the love. I think a lot of people saw the love, and I think that just goes to show you what this community is really about. So I was definitely, as a lifelong St. Louisan, I was very touched myself, because everybody that I saw was very supportive of them. And I think that's got to be an incredible feeling.
What's your biggest learning from this year as a CEO? Like, what was the one thing you said wasn't the same as last year?
Yeah.
What was the one thing where you're like, I learned something new here?
Well, I think every year is a new year. You have to start over. So here we are, this great, incredible Cinderella year. Then we come into this year, and it's not quite the Cinderella year. So it is a great reminder that you have to look at every year as every year, number one. Number two, this team really came together this year with very unique situations. And I think that, not having the pressure of a great inaugural year, but now having to operate a club as a normal kind of course of business was a change for a lot of people. But I saw the team, whether it was behind the scenes or on the pitch, come together in ways that you couldn't have predicted. But I think I think one of the biggest things is that winning makes everything so much easier. And when you're not winning, it forces creativity. It forces you to think about, how do you still stay relevant and the best club ever in MLS? And I think that this is where I saw a lot of people come up with great ideas. We were able to really push our community programs. So I think, compensated well for the losses, but winning is definitely easier.
One of the strategies that you put forward from day one since I arrived was the bigger than soccer narrative. And the view was, if it's all about the soccer, when you're not winning, then fans don't know what you're doing. Do you think the things that you've been doing in the community helped in the second year? I
do. And what really is amazing was I actually attended the Jackie Joyner Kersey mini pitch kickoff. And when you have 250 kids screaming, can't wait to get out there and play, and you've got, 3 or 4 players that are in the middle of it, enjoying everything, that these kids have to offer, it reminds you of this is why we're doing this more than just a sport. You're bringing in kids into the system, you're exposing them to soccer, whether they choose to stick with it or not, you can't obviously determine that. But to be able to have so many amazing launches, whether it was mini pitches, player appearances, we had players all over the city, actually a couple of them came to the Ronald McDonald House with my mom and I and helped prepare meals for families.
What a beautiful building they put down there, by the way. That Ronald McDonald House is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And, it's unfortunately the reason why the families are there is not necessarily the most positive. But, to watch these players come in and willingly spend their time to, make dinners for families, take pictures, talk to families. I am very proud that we were able to get more and more of that this year. So that's one of the things we've also said from the beginning is players and coaches had to be accessible to everybody. And so the fact that we were able to have so many appearances, I think definitely helps when you don't have the best year ever.
Were you surprised that players aren't just accepting these appearances, they're demanding them? Did you expect that when you started a sports club, that players would be so willing to be in and amongst the community?
Well, let's go back to a question you asked me about character. So when I sit down and talk to these players, and I've instructed Lutz, Vin, everybody over in the training facility, that is something that is an expectation. You will be asked to go in the community. You will be asked to attend events because the ownership's belief is that they have to be invested in you for this to work. They have to be invested for X, Y, and Z player for more than just being a good player, but a good person. And when you look at some of the success stories of the other sports teams here, it's because they're players and they coaches, they show up, they participate, and they do it because they want to. And that right there is something that's very important to me from day one. Like, you could be the best player in the world, but how are you when it comes to community events? How are you going to represent the club and the brand and the family? And that's why at these lunches, most of them have said to me, unprompted, one of my favorite things is to go out and see kids play soccer. And you're like, okay, this is amazing. Yeah. And what's interesting is most of them, and I say because I haven't seen them all yet, but most of them have done that.
Yeah, I think Cedric and Hartel were out at a City Futures event almost after getting off the plane. So it's great to see. So we're going to move on to chapter 2. We're going to talk about some of the off-the-field things that have been happening because it's been a busy year again. This beautiful stadium here is now known as Energizer Park. Can you talk to me about how important it was to get a brand like that on a beautiful stadium like this?
Yes. Well, first of all, it was a surprise. I don't think anybody thought Energizer would ever do anything like that. I also think that people didn't realize that their global headquarters is here in St. Louis. Yeah. But I mean, like you said, what a great partner to have. A global brand right here in St. Louis. It's been a lot of fun, working with their teams. And how could you not turn, you've got this iconic pink bunny. I mean, obviously pink, so we know I'm in. But, this bunny that's known all over the world. And so I think it was just an exciting time. I think they're excited. And so I'm ready for Energizer Park signs to go up, and we can officially start calling it Energizer Park.
Did you get the chance to walk around? There was a pre-event before the announcement, and the Energizer staff didn't know really what was going to happen. Did it give you a buzz to see how excited people were and the unprompted cheer when they found out, the staff at Energizer found out that they were going to be the name of the stadium? Did that sort of say a lot to you?
It did, because I was also told they had 250 employees come just for this event. And we were actually laughing because every single one of them was in city gear and we were not. And so it was so much fun to see them. And then I spent a couple of minutes talking to just some of their employees. And I think they have a lot of pride in Energizer and the company and what they're doing to really get the name out there and be a big supporter of the St. Louis community. And I think the lunch afterwards was actually so much fun because you saw city employees and Energizer employees. But I would say that their excitement is equally, if not higher than ours, which is what you want when you have a partnership like that.
Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about some recognitions. I know awards aren't the most important thing, but they are nice when they come. And City has had some really nice awards so far. We're awarded for Community Impact of the Year by MLS, Digital Activation of the Year for Tackle the Struggle, Match Day Presentation of the Year, Security Club of the Year, the Pre-Versailles World Title, and the HRC Human Rights Award. All of these collectively say that something's going right. Can you tell me, like, as the CEO of a club, what does it mean to receive these awards for those particular things?
Well, I think from the beginning, because it was very fortunate that we were able to build a stadium from the ground up. So it allowed us to do things that could get to goal zero because we weren't having to try to retrofit. And so we've always from the beginning really been very conscious about that. It's why we have aluminum cans and aluminum cups. But it's also, no single-use plastic. And Joe Abernathy and his crew does an amazing job. I mean, there are people that sort trash afterwards to make sure that it's all properly in the right bins. But I think that that's also been very important from the beginning. Obviously, digital activation. I'm going to sit here and tell you that we have the best team, hands down. I've always said that. So it's so nice when there are recognitions coming in that I don't even think we know that we were even in the running for. But that's because people come into this building every day and they put their heart and soul into their job. And so when you see these awards, it's more of a reminder, but also affirmations of just how incredible the staff is. The Prix-Versailles Award was honestly...
Did you apply?
No, I had no idea. In fact, when I got the email, I was like, is this an anti-spam email? Because how would somebody in France know about City Park? And then when I realized it was legitimate, it was like, this is what we said in 19. We wanted to make this an international club. We wanted to be back on the international map. We just won an international sports venue award. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, my mom tells everybody, can you believe this? And so it's things like that, you're just so proud of. You didn't expect it. Certainly not, 2 full years, into this project, 5 total. But it's just nice to have that. Just nice to have those things to celebrate because I think it just continues the momentum and I think it keeps employees wanting to work harder and keep winning that award. And what can I do next year? And so I'm thrilled when, ideas and how do we make it better? So hopefully we have more awards next year.
And I know that with the Prix-Versailles Award, which was for stadium, I know one of the parts of the design that you love in the stadium is inclusivity. Can you talk to me about some of the parts of the inclusivity, like with the Sunflower program and what they are? Because I don't think everybody knows that happens.
So one of the things kind of going back to, we wanted to make sure we were thoughtful of all communities. And so we worked with Mind's Eye, Deaf Inc. Actually, BJC helped us with, the sensory room and the nursing room. We wanted to make sure that we were inclusive and accessible to as many people as possible. Selfishly, I will tell you that I think St. Louis has an amazing footprint for working with especially nonprofits that really sort of focus in on this area. And so we actually got letters saying, thank you for having this, because my family actually could come and enjoy a match because if we had a challenge, there was somebody there to help us. One of the things the Sunflower program is you're given an actual sunflower, but it's a sign to guest services that there may be an unseen disability or an unseen challenge. And what we've done is really work on training guest services to spot that. And so I think that just helps make sure and reinforce that we just want to continue to provide that amazing environment, but again, in the way that you as an individual can enjoy it.
And you've won these awards, but the job is never done. How do you make sure that the club is always keeping on track with these things and always looking to continuously improve?
Well, first of all, you hire amazing people to do that for you. And then your only job is to say you like it or you don't. It's a great situation to be in.
Yeah.
All kidding aside, there are just so many changes, right, in the world we live in. And so I think that having people they stay on top of this. They know what's going on in industry trends. They know what we should be thinking about. And again, always trying to encourage the team to take that 3 to 5 year look. What is that going to look like? And I think there's some things that are going to be consistent, but there's always things that are changing. And so I think the best thing to do is just rely on, the talent that you hired and to come and say, look, this may not be in 25, but what do we do in 26? And that's, again, I can't say enough. One of the things I appreciate about our team is they're always thinking, yes, we have to get into the 2025 year, but we really need to be thinking about 26 and 27 as well.
When I first joined here, a lot of people told me about St. Louis sports fans and how they always show up. Last year was a difficult year on the pitch, but fans still showed up to every MLS game. Every MLS game was a sellout. Did you, or like, you grew up here, did you know that was going to happen, or is it still like hey, don't take it for granted, like what's going to happen here? How proud were you to see fans show up and support the team, whatever happened?
Our fans make the entire experience, because people keep coming back and they're just like, gosh, between the chanting and the food and the music and just the fact that we encourage people to curate their own experience on match day. I think that sort of was also proven because we did sell out. And I think that our fans are loyal, they're supportive. But to your point, we can't take for granted that they were that supportive in a, like I said, below average year. So we as a club have to do better on the sporting side. But I think that we've got all the right things in place to make sure that happens.
Does it still give you and the family a buzz when you show up at match day and there's all the noise before the game? Is it still a thrill to you?
Well, it almost becomes an addiction, because on Saturday nights, you want to be down at now Energizer Park and you want to see, everybody and feel, the noise and the chants. And so I think if anything, it's elevated, because now it's just sort of what we do. And it's fun to bring the whole family out, and the little girls are even getting into it now. So you've got this whole family who's become soccer fans. We were not soccer fans 3 years ago.
One of the missions of the club was to make St. Louis proud, but also make people outside of St. Louis pay attention to the city. Does it excite you that people from all over the country look at what's going on in there on match day and say, that's one of the best in class stadiums in North America?
It does. I think along the same lines as people ask me, how is it that I see city gear no matter where I go? Are your fans that loyal that there are so many of them that I see a city crest in, in Rome? I see a city crest in, Alaska. And to think that there wasn't even this brand 5 years ago, and now you're seeing it in common places here, but also throughout the entire globe. I mean, you have to be so proud of your team for that. But that only happened because the fans bought into this. They believed in us, they support us. But I do find it pretty funny when I see representing city in Madrid. I'm like, wow, this is exactly what we wanted to have happen. But I have had a couple of people in the community say, do you pay people to wear your crest all over the world? Or is it just they're that bought in? And I'm like, they're just that bought in. They're just that bought into us.
The City 2 team had another good year, but I wanted to talk about the City 2 experience. That was revamped at the start of the year after a good first season. Can you talk to me about the purpose behind what we saw at City 2 from a fan experience this season?
Yeah, I mean, we really needed to kind of figure out what we were going to do with this team as far as, to your point, the experience. And how did we create an identity for it that was similar to City but different? And I think it was actually some of your City moves, meetings and focus groups where there was some questions about how do I get my younger kids in there? Saturday night, 7:30, loud, may not always be ideal. So I think what we really did was lean into how do we make this a more family-friendly experience? How do we bring in things that you would see on a Saturday night into a Sunday? That included food, that included some of the partners. We had supporter camp, but then it was also reaching out, a partnership with the Magic House, the St. Louis Zoo. So things that had a very family-friendly focus. And then that way, you still got the experience of coming down to the park, but you weren't necessarily there in the thick of the craziness on a Saturday night, late into the night.
And not a lot of people know this, but you go to a lot of those games, and a lot of the first team players also show up to those games. Did that speak to the culture that you have at the club?
Yes. I mean, I was actually truly surprised how many first team players came, but I hear stories, sort of anecdotally, but I hear stories about, when I was playing on a, academy team or kind of a similar team to City 2, when the first team players would come, it inspired us to play better. It inspired us to work harder. But I think it does go back to that whole, that is the mentality that they have set, that you will go and support the teams below you. And I actually sat with a couple players during a City 2 game, and you could see that there was this sort of big brother thing going on. Like, they really wanted to be helpful about things that needed to be passed on to make those City 2 players better players. And that's what you want. You know, you don't want that division. You want that camaraderie, because I do think the younger players could learn a lot from the first team players. And so to be able to have their presence there, it speaks volumes about what we're trying to create. But I think it also inspires them to work harder too.
The fan experience continues to develop. We had new food partners, new game day activations. What was your favorite addition to Energizer Park last season?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to begin with that, because I have to kind of, I have to try everything. But I think what's bigger and a better story to tell is the exposure that all of these restaurants are gaining, and people are trying their food, and they're talking about how great their food was, and they're actually going to visit, their brick and mortar locations. So I sort of have to multi-course it. So I would probably farm truck macaroni and cheese. I mean, obviously.
That is a delight.
I mean, it's so good. And then, but some days I'm in the mood for pizza, so I got to get the Pie Guy pizza. But then there's all these little treats I didn't even know were coming, and then I have to eat all of those as well. It's all good.
Did you ever expect to see restaurant partners like Olive and Oak showing up in a sports stadium, creating food masterpieces?
No, you really don't. And like I said early on, I had to go on a food journey, because a lot of the restaurants in Energizer Park I had never heard of. So I was that person that ate in my local neighborhood, and then all of a sudden we were handed a list of these food partners. And so, personally, it was fun for me to go out and try some of these, new, smaller restaurants, but now to see them all together and to see they actually work really well together, it's exactly what we wanted to have happen.
The streets are talking at the moment, and they're wondering, are there going to be any new food partners? I know you can't give away names, but is there going to be new reasons to come down early next season?
There's always new reasons to come down next season, but I don't know who the new food partners are. But you just have to keep following us on the app. Wait, I'm sure there'll be an announcement. I've been told about a couple, and let's just say that I will definitely be partaking in those as well.
That's all we need to know. The stadium has been driving economic growth around the area. I wonder if you could tell me, are you pleased with the economic development that's happened as a result of the stadium so far, and what can fans look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, your hope is you do one of these projects and it spurs economic development and economic growth. And it's outside of just jobs. It's tax revenue. It's also, plans that are being developed of some of these buildings that have been sitting empty. It's, can you bring in new bars and restaurants? Can you bring in new retail? And so I think that we've, again, proven it's a safe place.
Yep.
Density, activities in all of downtown have proven time and time again. That's how you start changing the narrative of safety. But people now talk about downtown West like it's a destination that's been in this region forever, and it hasn't. As a lifelong St. Louisan, it has not. And so to be able to see just the hub of activity that a sport can create, but also an international world-class facility, and people wanting to be in your neighborhood, again, it was a goal. Had no idea if it was going to work. All signs are that it is working, but these things take a little bit of time. So I think we want to be the best neighbor we can be and supportive any way we know how. As
someone that's passionate about revitalizing downtown St. Louis, elephant in the room is always the perception of crime. How much progress do you think that you and the city and the mayor are making on crime downtown? So
actually quite a bit. Chief Tracy will be celebrating his 2nd year anniversary in January. And I think that he's brought a lot of tools and resources to the city. So things we didn't have before, such as tracking, reporting. He has a good relationship with the mayor. Now with Gabe Gore in office, he has a great relationship with Gabe Gore. And so you're starting to see numbers trend in the right direction. I will say, though, that time and time again, density has been sort of the secret sauce to deter crime. So there was a day, I think it was a Saturday in maybe March, where there was an event at Energizer Park, Busch Stadium, Enterprise Center, and I think the Battlehawks were playing. So over 100,000 people downtown, and they had no major crime-related incident to report.
Wow.
And so I think what you're starting to see is people are feeling a little bit better when they come downtown, but it definitely has to become thriving. And it can't just be a city match or just strictly a Blues game. It has to be everybody working together and, you know, really thinking about how do we continue to have that sort of density downtown.
And you take a long-term view on everything. Are you positive that this is going in the right direction and the investment that you make is gonna be a good one when we look back in 20, 30 years' time?
Yes, in 2030, I hope that there is a very well-curated, very unique St. Louis district around the stadium. And I have complete confidence we will be able to do that.
Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about Bigger Than Soccer. The City Futures program and mini pitch development have been big successes in and around the city. Like, what's going on with those programs? Are you intertwining them? Like, are there going to be more popping up around St. Louis?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the goal is to get more and more kids exposure to the sport. I will say, though, some of it is a staffing problem. It grew a lot faster than we expected. There's a lot of excitement around it. It's funny, people that aren't even really soccer fans ask because they see us out at parks and different locations. So we definitely have a lot of growth there, which is amazing. Mini pitch program, definitely have a lot of growth there as well. Key there is making sure that we partner with the right partners. So Jackie Joyner-Kersey was great. And then some of the others have been really good. Because the last thing you want to do is put an investment there and then have it sit, not used.
Right, yeah.
Because what it can do is spur kids of all ages, adults, all different levels, coming out together, spending time together, enjoying the outdoors. So the good news is there's a lot of growth and a lot of more announcements to come there too.
The Tackle the Struggle campaign that the club runs is a mental health platform designed to give people ways in whatever their mental health struggles are. How pleased have you been with the development this year, and will mental health continue to be a pillar of St. Louis City?
Yes, I mean, you know, so my other job at the Enterprise Mobility Foundation, what we're hearing from those employees as well is a lot about what are we going to do as a company to help address mental health. I think it's something very important. I think it's something that is being talked about, but it's a very big issue to try to take on. So I think anybody that's doing anything in that space deserves a high five because it's difficult. But I think with the help of our employees, with the help of our other partners, you know, Tackle the Struggle was born. And so, you know, the goal is to make sure to continue to use that platform to tell stories, to make it okay if you're struggling with mental health issues, but also to provide resources as to what you should do if you find yourself in a situation.
Fantastic. Big question. Women's sport continues to grow globally. Is there any chance that we could see a women's team in St. Louis at some point in the future?
Yeah, I think it's always out there, but we have so much we still have to do with our current teams and really our current community program. And so I think one of the things that has made Enterprise so successful and others so successful is they stayed true to what they were supposed to do. So our mission right now is to really make sure and take what we have and make it world class. Mm-hmm. We know that we still have a little bit of a ways to go, but we're always asking questions. We're always making sure that we're following the trends. So I think right now we just need to make sure we really perfect what we have on our plate.
Okay. So Carolyn, are there any new local partnerships that are coming up in 2025 that you're excited to talk about?
Well, I mean, let's see here. Well, I can't really tell them to you because it's not 2025 yet. But I think one of the things our team has done a very good job is making sure that we find the right partners. So this past summer, we launched the reading program with the city and county libraries. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done to really escalate that program. But I think when it comes to community partnerships, I think our focus is really kind of that family and kids, because I think that they're very important to not only, you know, bring them in as fans, but also, hopefully they grow up in this region and they stay in this region and they remember, City SC being a part of that.
Okay. Chapter 4 is 2025. Big question to start with from a sporting perspective. I think you've touched on it so far, but let's sort of reconfirm it to the fans. What are your expectations going into next season? New manager, new players, new moment, chapter 3 of the City SC story.
We have to make the playoffs, hands down. We have to do it for the fans. We have to do it for the region. And we have to show everybody that we were not just a one-season Cinderella team, that we are an amazing team. We're a world-class team. And so making playoffs, hopefully going far in playoffs, is exactly how we're going to tell everybody that this is a world-class team that's here to stay.
So winning is a key component of the way that you're thinking over the long term.
We have to be a playoff contention team every year. We need to qualify for the playoffs.
With the 2026 World Cup fast approaching, there's a lot of soccer, a lot of exciting things coming to America over the next 2 years. Is there anything that City are doing around the World Cup? Are we thinking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So each team will have to have a base camp. And so one of the things we've been doing behind the scenes is really trying to figure out how do we sort of woo, if you will, some of these teams to come and spend, I think it's close to a month here in St. Louis and make that their base camp. Unfortunately, we have a soccer-specific stadium, so we were disqualified from having matches. But that doesn't mean we can't participate. And that's just trying to attract a team here to St. Louis. But certainly we will look at how do we have watch parties? How do we get out into the communities and really celebrate the international feeling of soccer, but also support Team USA as well.
Will having a training ground, a headquarters, and a stadium on the same campus, do you think that will be appealing to international teams?
Early feedback is that it is.
Yes.
I think it also, from a logistics standpoint of view, but also they're right downtown. They've got, beautiful Union Station, the Ferris wheel. But I also think too that we're also being told that our climate actually helps a little bit because some of these players and some of these teams may not be used to playing July humidity, and St. Louis can actually, we're turning that into a positive.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that. That's
so
true.
You'll get to play in maybe all 4 seasons in 1 month. But I think they're overall just impressed with how downtown has grown and the hotel rooms, but also the facility. But I think they also know that this region would love to be host to a team.
You might not be able to get World Cup games, but there have been a slate of international games played here. We've played tournaments. Is that going to consistently be on the roadmap moving forward? Are you hoping to attract more teams and international friendlies, those sorts of things?
Absolutely. I think I think, each of these matches has a different feel to them, which is exciting. And, we've had the women's national team, men's national team, international friendlies, but it's also a great way to see what other talent's out there as well. And so I think that having non-MLS matches is just overall great for the region. But I think it's also great to keep people very excited and continue to grow our fan base in the sport of soccer.
The Board of Governors meeting was last week. There are a lot of rumors about a potential schedule change. Can you shine any light on those rumors? Is it a real discussion that's going on at the moment?
Yes. So it's being headed by Nelson Rodriguez at the league office. My personal opinion, I think it's a great exercise. I think it's definitely something MLS needs to consider. But you also have 30 teams. So I think trying to figure out which team is going to land where, it's been an undertaking I personally wouldn't want to do. But all early indications is I think a majority of the ownership group definitely want to explore this, and hopefully there's more to come.
Fantastic. Well, the last question always goes to you, and it's your message to the St. Louis City fans, and what have you got to tell them heading out of this year into an exciting new one?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the support. Thank you for, coming to the matches. Thank you for buying food, drinks, supporting us. But, I'm very, very excited for 2025. Watching this team come together at the end of a season that ended way too soon, it just makes you that more excited, and you're ready for preseason to start. You're ready to see what Olaf's going to bring to the team. But, we also have a new kit launch. We have so many exciting announcements to make in 2025. And so I just want to say, again, eternally grateful for the support. Love the enthusiasm, love the excitement. And hopefully, actually, 2025 will be our best non-inaugural year yet.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, City fans. Carolyn Kindle explaining to you everything that's gone on last season and getting you excited for 2025. Thank you, Carolyn. That was fantastic. And remember, if you're listening to this on your iPhone or your whatever phone, give us a little 5-star review. That always helps move the needle. And we will be back next year with a whole slate of new players. Carolyn, we hope to have you back at the end of next year to talk about a very successful season. And on that note, say thank you. Ciao for now.